So Kamala Harris's method of suburban turnout was a demonstrable fucking failure in Georgia.
Absolutely.
An unimaginable failure. So the reason why, I mean, I don't want to do the "I told you so" route in this situation, not to you in particular.
We should.
But
we can do
like,
the "I told you so" route because we did. I was
because
trying to be bullish on her. I fundamentally believed in the world of 2022. I believe in the world where Americans, with given a generic Democrat, would choose them over Trump. We've seen that time and time again. We saw that in 2022. Democrats had the best midterm election since the Great Depression. But you can't fucking force it with your ideological, centrist, center-right, neocon preferences. You can't force this interventionist bullshit ideology down people's throats. You have to meet them where they are. You have to run somebody people see as a capable, charismatic leader. You can't be trying to fucking convince them to bring back the Iraq War era. They rejected that in 2008. You won off of a platform that said that we should spend money at home and not overseas. You get elected 12 years later off of a platform where you're saying we're going to create an interventionism of foreign policy for the middle class. Meet people where they are. They've clearly rejected you. Before Biden, who was the Senate Foreign Relations Committee who spearheaded the Iraq War resolution at the objection of every single Democrat who was around from the Kennedy era, they were every single president since 2004, when Bush barely won after 9/11, ran on an anti-interventionist platform. Obama ran out of pulling out of wars.
Donald
Obama
Trump
in 2012 ran out of not going to war with Russia.
Donald Trump literally in 2016. Donald Trump in 2016 ran to the fucking left of Hillary Clinton, presenting himself as a peaceful dove to the Hillary Clinton's warmongering ways. This was massively beneficial in making him look like a moderate. Yes.
He was seen as a moderate. He was widely seen as a moderate. And the reason why Democrats came back in 2018, 2020, 2022, winning nearly every single state that matters, often by landslide margins, between 2016 and 2024, Democrats had not lost a meaningful statewide race in Pennsylvania. They had not lost a single statewide race in Michigan. They had not lost practically any meaningful statewide races in Wisconsin, besides 2022 when an incumbent, Ron Johnson, barely won against a leftist, Mandela Barnes. They won both Senate seats in Georgia. They won the governor's race in North Carolina. They won both Senate seats in Arizona, both Senate seats in Nevada, the governor's race in Arizona. Their mainstream liberalism is a formula that wins when you run somebody who is seen as capable and competent. Americans don't want Trumpism. They rejected Trumpism for nearly a decade straight. But you can't beat Trumpism when you try to force these hated D.C., Washington swamp psychos with negative 20 favorable and approval ratings down their throats, because it's what you want. Because it's what they want. They want this center-right, Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney foreign policy. They want these wars overseas. They want this support for Israel. They want endless war everywhere. They want these endless commitments. They want American hegemony as the sole purpose of the American state. It's an ideology that has been rejected time and time and time again. And they can't get over it. And they're throwing us all off into the fucking abyss because they can't get over it. They need to grow up. They need to be rooted out, root and stem. That is our project. If she can't pull out a fucking miracle in these 3 Midwestern states off of abortion, if she can't pull a rabbit out of a goddamn hat, our project for the next 4 years is making it clear that the centrists were the ones who failed us. We gave them the ball. We gave them the ball in 2020. They promised they could be electable. They barely beat Trump. They came into office with massive public support after January 6th, and they failed time and time and time again. They ran an 80-year-old man for re-election. A hated 80-year-old man. They credited a midterm victory that was so clearly the result of people running away from Biden. Not a single person in the Democratic Party in 2022 ran on the Joe Biden platform. Everybody from Raphael Warnock to Gretchen Whitmer to John Fetterman did not run with Joe Biden. They didn't even say they supported him for re-election, and they won because people saw them as different. and then you run the person who they see as a failure, you're going to fail.
Yeah, there was no constituency, and not only was there never really a constituency, it was like a purely ideological grift from the Democratic Party. They just one thing that I think is really interesting about this is that they always claim that people like myself, people like yourself, are these like idealistic fucking losers who just want a unicorn, right? Like that's what Hillary Clinton said about Medicare for all. Oh, what's next? You want a unicorn? And it's like the things that we are advocating for are not only morally correct, but they're also massively beneficial in terms of the race, in terms of winning races. Even if you are not genuinely interested in pushing the needle towards like a more just society, towards expansion of Medicare in a very significant way, not like at-home care or whatever the fuck focus tested shit that Kamala Harris was pushing for,
like focus grouped shitty fucking things.
Even if that wasn't the case, like even if you weren't going to do that, like you couldn't even fucking lie about it, which blows my goddamn mind. Like at least fucking lie about it. And the fact that they chose not to even do that, the fact that they chose not to even dignify the base of support with lies to get them excited at the prospect, like Barack Obama did in 2008, is genuinely shocking. We are not the idealists here.
We are the pragmatists.
Centrists, yes, we are pragmatic.
They are the fucking idealists. They are the ideologues. They are the people doing what they accuse the left of, where they prioritize their bullshit ideological crusades over pragmatic winning and stopping fascism. These people prioritized their stupid fucking neocon bullshit over actually doing what needed to be done.
Yeah,
they prioritized it at every fucking turn.
We also have some more damning news from David Day, and House is starting to slip away from the Dems. This result in what was considered a safe seat in Illinois is the big shocker so far, with Joshua Lloyd with 72% of the votes in. The Republican candidate is clobbering Nikki Budzinski.
Yeah, even the hope that existed under Biden that there would be some degree of separation between a generic liberal, someone like Bob Casey or Tammy Baldwin or any of these House members who won in 2022, they would be like separated from the Biden administration, something that made sense in theory, did not work in this high turnout electorate. When you have these low information voters, these low engagement voters, the kinds of voters who only show up every 4 years for presidential races and don't show up in special elections and runoffs and all these other races, when you have these voters showing up here, they just see the Democrat on the ticket as one and the same with this administration that they despise.
Yeah, but listen, you want to know what the silver lining in all of this is? Kamala Harris wanted to appoint a Republican to her cabinet, and honestly, now it's going to be all Republicans, and it seems like Democrats love that shit. So
yeah, they'll be fine. You're happy. You wanted Liz Cheney running the CIA. You're going to get more than enough of that.
Yeah.
The thing is with this, after 2016 was a legitimate upset. 2016 was something that was truly surprising. We didn't see it coming. Clinton was a very popular politician at some points in her career. She had the backing of this political machine that had won countless times. Trump was this person with minus 40% personal favorables. He was rejected by his party. Less than a month before the election, you had all these establishment figures who were telling him to drop out of the race. It was a legitimate question as to why he won. There were legitimate things Democrats needed to do. There wasn't a clear path forward because the party had been losing under Obama since 2010. They got blown out in 2010. They got blown out in 2014. They got killed in all these races leading up to 2016. What we have now, we have a party that is
up, by the way. Sorry to cut you off, but that was error in reporting, data entry error. Bazinski's actually up.
Yeah, but the thing is, the difference between this and 2016
and she won.
is that after 2016, reasonable people could disagree on what the proper path forward is. Centrists had a legitimate case that they had a perfectly viable, even the most viable ideology electorally, and that they had just been they just happened to run this person who was corrupt and personally unpopular, and it fucked them. Run Biden.
It doesn't make any sense. Biden, Kamala Harris would not be running for. Kamala Harris would not be the presidential candidate right now if Joseph Robinette Brandon was not so unimaginably unpopular that he had to do the unceremonious, unique thing of dropping the fuck out. Why the fuck would you spend any of your truncated campaign running towards the fucking unpopular person? Why would you keep that unpopular person's own? Why would you keep his campaign? Why would you keep his campaign? Why would you run towards him? Why would you consistently say you are going to be just like him? But like,
they sacrificed our future on the altar of their fucking petulant, childish fetish towards Joe Biden. They sacrificed a clear path towards winning that we've seen be successful time and time and time again because they didn't want to admit that they did something wrong, even when the signs were clear every single step of the way. They were children. They were childish. They chose their feelings over what could have been done to easily be successful. People don't like Donald Trump. They've never liked Donald Trump. There's not been a single moment of this man's career that he has ever had personal positive favorability. That has never been the case for any national politician of his length of his career before. But he's probably going to be a 2-term president because they insist on their fucking ideological centrist bullshit.
There's still people in the chat going, bro, shut the fuck up. Joe beat Trump when no one else could in 2020. 42,000 votes, by the way.
4.5 during COVID.
42,000 votes over Donald Trump, who got COVID literally a week before, like the Comey letter. When COVID was like the top of mind, number one priority, Donald Trump literally got COVID right before the fucking election. Like,
he beat him by 40,000 votes.
He beat him by 42,000 votes.
During a generational public health crisis.
Yeah, no, it is unimaginably infuriating to watch the Democrats throw so fucking consistently and so aggressively. And I know for a fact tomorrow's headlines are going to be that like those stinky Muslim Arabs didn't fucking vote for the Democratic Party. Are you happy now? How many of you voted for Jill Stein or whatever?
He's getting less than 1%.
Yeah. I know. They're going to get, I think that in the aftermath of this, like depolarization of racial boundaries, Democrats are going to run an increasingly more racist campaign than the one that they ran this time around. If they don't get their fucking act in order, if they continue along the same trajectory, they will somehow, in the eve of the Republican Party's collapse, literally offer them permanent victory. Like the Republican Party is supposed to be collapsing in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade, in the aftermath of Trumpism. And they did. They did collapse. The Democratic Party is a machine, and the Democratic Party as a party is not unpopular. It's just that the leadership decisions being made from the campaign has been objectively unpopular. Every single time I asked myself and I asked this community, who is this for? Whenever Kamala Harris came out and said, oh, I'm going to do a $50,000 tax cut for small businesses. I'm a small business. My mother was a small business. I'm a transnational gang and I will prosecute them. I was like, who is this for?
I'm from a middle-class family.
Yeah, I'm from a middle-class family.
Isn't that amazing?
I said, who's this for? Who is this for? Is that for you? No? Then stop imagining that it's actually for someone else. It's just objectively bad fucking messaging. Okay?
Yeah, and you know what? We saw politicians in this race who were unconnected from the Biden administration. We have Ruben Gallego running against Kerry Lake, who's essentially a Trump clone. He's up by 7 points. We're probably going to see Jackie Rosen in Nevada win. She's not even a fucking leftist. She's a Zionist. She's insanely Zionist. We have Sherrod Brown in Ohio, who's outrunning her by God knows how much. We have like even the shitty CIA politician who's running for Senate in Michigan is outrunning her. The 2 incumbents in Pennsylvania and Michigan are outrunning her. There's a constituency here who are perfectly willing to vote for Democrats. They just don't want to vote for an administration that they've seen as a failure since the fall of Kabul. And like people will fucking like Hillary, they'll crucify me for saying this, but like I don't entirely blame them. I get it. Biden looked inept. Kamala Harris is an inexperienced politician. She's only been in elected office since 2016 nationally. She's won 2 races against Republicans, one of which was in California that she nearly lost. She did nothing during her vice presidency. She was connected to Biden's biggest failures. When she ran for president, there was a moment of excitement that she could break from him, that she could represent something new, maybe a more
that moment of excitement came with almost $1 billion in fundraising from small donors, and they literally looked at that and were like, all right, we're good now.
Yeah, I don't get why they picked fucking Walz. What was the point of that? Why'd you do that?
Exactly. Remember when the vice presidential debate was happening, or even leading up to that, when they objectively moved to a attack to the center, attack to the right strategy, as they always do.
Yeah.
I said, why the fuck didn't you pick Josh Shapiro? He would have been better. He would have been better than Tim Walz. If you were going to go to the center, then yeah, go with the conservative governor from the state of Pennsylvania. You get a 2-point bump regardless, because he's the governor of the fucking state that you have to win. And on top of that,
consistent. He loves Israel. He was a former IDF member. He loves charter schools.
Yeah.
He's not like, he doesn't have any.
More importantly, he would have been a better communicator. He could have done the fucking Barack Obama thing that he does all the time. And he would have been a better communicator of like the tepid neoliberalism of Kamala Harris. Yeah. I don't know why they went with Tim Walz, who
like a progressive. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, of course I said Walz was good. Chatters, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Walz is a fucking gem. Are you stupid? Tim Walz, if he was at the top of the ticket right now, this would not even be a conversation that we're having. Tim Walz is a gem.
He was the sole candidate in this entire race who had positive personal favorables.
Yeah. They wasted it. They wasted his opportunity. They literally turned around and backpocketed him. And they forced him to fucking repeat talking points that were coming from the top of the ticket. And yeah, I said it time and time again. Tim Walz, when he talks about like giving people healthcare, when he talks about housing, you can see how hard he pops off. When he talks about like, Israel's first strike policy against Iran, he sounds like a fucking asshole in a suit, just like everyone else. Josh Shapiro at least would have been a more charismatic facilitator of that kind of thing. Yeah. He literally would have done a better job than Tim Walz to be like, yeah, I would love to fucking nuke Iran, or I would love to have a muscular border policy. Tim Walz sucked at that.
I wouldn't I'm not too fucking proud. I'm not going to say some bullshit like you have to run a fucking socialist in every election to win. You just have to run somebody who looks competent. Josh Shapiro won in Pennsylvania against a Trump toady by 15 points. This isn't complicated. We don't need like some fucking magic sauce. We just need somebody who's capable of like looking like they can govern the country. Not this fucking old man, 81-year-old failure who's been in Washington since the Nixon administration. Not his unqualified running mate who's done nothing and nobody knows and refused to make a clear profile for herself.
I don't care about that. Like Kamala Harris being a blank slate is not necessarily an issue when generic Democrats were like outperforming Joe Biden by 28 points. Kamala Harris is the generic Democrat. The problem is, but as a generic Democrat, she had a fucking blank slate. She had a blank slate, and instead of messaging specifically to specifically communicating a direct fissure between her and the administration that she was a part of, whether it be on Gaza or even on immigration, or even like expanding on the former accomplishments of the prior administration and saying we've done a lot, but we have so much more to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and talk about like expanding fucking Medicare or something.
Medicare for all. I think she endorsed.
I know. Medicare for all would have been an absolute banger. She wouldn't have looked like a fucking flip-flopper from 2019 when everyone was trying to be woke and radical and progressive instead of running away from all of those messages. But even if she's not going to do that, at least say at least do the Sherrod Brown thing. Say you're going to lower the Medicare age to 55. That's radical enough for a lot of Americans to fucking get mad at you. But
It's a meaningful enough difference from your shitty policy, your shitty administration. It's so frustrating because I would love to say that this is because they weren't left-wing enough. I would love to say they just have to endorse all of my own personal policies. They just have to back what I like and what I personally back, and they'd be A-okay. But it's not that. It's not that complicated. It's not that elaborate or that esoteric. This is a very easy opposition. It's an opposition that had lost for nearly a decade. They had only managed to win against incredibly unpopular DC-aligned Democrats, and lo and behold, that's exactly what you gave them for the third time in a row. You barely lost the first time you did it, barely won the second time. Now you're probably going to lose by more the third time. It's not rocket science. It's not complicated. They just refuse to acknowledge the reality staring them in the face.
All right. So the question is it Jover? Also, the Senate is officially flipped. Sherrod Brown, speaking of Sherrod Brown, has lost to fucking Bernie Moreno.
Didn't need to happen. Probably is going to outrun her by a shit ton.
Bernie fucking Moreno, dude. Bernie Moreno.
Art dealer who's done every form of fraud on planet Earth.
And also a closeted gay man.
Yes, I said now DL Moreno.
Yeah.
DL Vance.
Yeah, he is a closeted gay man who was like super pro gay rights, and then immediately, as soon as he fucking flipped over to the Republican side, became like an anti-trans nutter. Okay, straight up, like there is mountains of opposition research on this motherfucker, and he wasn't even like the best slated to win this seat from the Ohio primaries. They just what?
He was the worst performing candidate in the Ohio primaries. He was losing the entire way through. He was losing when Biden was in the race. I mean, like, certainly the polling was probably wrong there. It was probably the case that the polls were only reaching a group of voters who were more likely to be ticket splitters, and they missed the low information voters who only turn out during presidential races, who only vote party line. That was what happened in 2020 to a degree, although it didn't cost them everything. It very nearly did. So polling has a bit of an issue here. Polling really did show this degree of Democratic strength against Kamala that either wasn't the case or that the candidate at the top of the ballot being connected to the administration just fucked them up. The question now at this point is if Baldwin and Casey can win. That's not a guarantee. And we need them at this point it's are Democrats in a position to maybe possibly win back the Senate in 2026? Because if Kamala can't pull a rabbit out of the hat here, Trump is gonna if he wins, he's gonna have the Senate. He's gonna be able to replace Alito and Thomas with his own people. The contradictions have been completely heightened here. There is no possibility of a traditional reform through the system. We're not going to be able to just bide our time and win every election for the next 10 years and hope things fall into place. We're going to need radical court reform if there's going to be anything done. We're going to need some really, really a huge reform of the DNC that's put together so they can actually appeal to people instead of trying to prioritize their Cheneyite crusades over everything else that's going on. I hope that I wish there could be a middle ground. I really did. I thought there maybe could be a middle ground, but there just wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's nothing we don't
for the
already
first time
know.
tonight. Nate Cohn says, for the first time tonight, we consider Trump likely to win the presidency. He's an advantage in each of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin to win. Harris would need to sweep all three. There's still a lot of vote left, but in the voting so far, Trump is narrowly but discernibly ahead.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, like Shai is saying, she's just underrunning Biden across the board, no matter the demographic. It's a shift away from her. There are some demographics where this is more pronounced. There are some demographics where it's lessened. There are some areas, some suburban areas, where she's doing a little bit better than him. But the general story is this is an unpopular administration. This is an largely unpopular, inexperienced candidate people didn't know. And this is an environment in which people were very unsatisfied with the direction of the country, and the candidate who might have been in a position to possibly represent change only did so in the most abstract sense instead of meeting stuff directly.
Looks like Kamala Harris will not win the south end of Dearborn, an area 90+% Muslim that Biden won with 88% of the vote 4 years ago. I wonder how that happened. Maybe we shouldn't have fucking sent Richie Torres and then Bill Clinton to Michigan to be like, Arabs are dogs that need to be put down. It seems like that was a bad.
By so much that the Arab vote didn't make the difference. So
by the way, yeah, there's also that too. But here's the issue. It's not like this is fucking hindsight, this is foresight. This is just sight. These are all of the specific things that we yelled about for years, but especially more importantly in this last election cycle. It was just and everybody kept telling me I'm fucking wrong. Everybody was like, no, you don't understand. They have a method to this madness. There's adults in the room. I'm sure they know better. And I kept saying, in 2016, they didn't know better.
Yeah, I wrote in April 2023 before Biden announced his campaign that 2022 put them in a good position to win, but this administration and Joe Biden in particular was just so unpopular and toxic that I think the West Coast just came in. The polls just closed in California and Washington. Adam Schiff is going to be the new senator.
I know. I can't wait. I voted for him on stream, and I was like, this motherfucker is gonna put me in jail one day when like Chuck Schumer's anti-Semitism bill comes into effect if the Democrats win. Yeah. But now he can still vote to put me in jail as a Democrat after I voted for him.
God, they're gonna have the fucking Senate, the lame duck Biden administration with the Senate majority and with the president-elect Trump, and they use that time to pass the anti-Semitism bill. That's a perfect end to all this. God. It's just not. You shouldn't have run a 78-year-old man. Shouldn't have run a 78-year-old man who was wrong on every single policy position and for his entire life. It just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I told you so. It just rings so fucking hollow because I just know that the Democrats are probably actively strategizing on how to fucking create a tailor-made message as to why, like, somehow I was responsible and people like me were responsible for them fucking losing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was like, it felt like compelling and new, like fucking like 8 years ago. Like, oh my God, you guys won under Obama twice, but it turns out centrism actually isn't good. What an amazing concept. Who could have ever thought? God, he's going to probably win the popular vote.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was, I said that was likely regardless. But I still thought that like the fucking suburb vote would be holding through, you know?
The thing is that if the country voted like the suburbs did, if the country voted like the entire country voted like the Atlanta suburbs, if the entire country voted like these like specific areas in Virginia and like Wisconsin and like North Carolina, if the whole country voted like that, she probably ends up winning. The thing is, the country just didn't end up voting like that. The country didn't do that. The country didn't, like, there was everywhere besides the suburbs moved away from 2020. Everywhere besides the suburbs moved to the right. The rural areas, the urban areas, New York, everything from New York City to fucking like rural Indiana and Kentucky, like, moved to the right. And if you're not putting up like massive margins, like, and it counteract that, which she didn't do, you're not going to win. You can't win. You can't win with that. And now we're probably in a situation where Trump's going to win at all the 7 swing states. Poly market was right. Like, God, the polling was right. Guess we can go forward like fucking worshiping Atlas Intel.
Okay, I don't give a fuck about the pollsters and how correct they were. I don't care that they were correct in their analysis, because regardless of what they were saying, there's still a likelihood that they also predicted that this was a close enough race where Kamala Harris could still win the Electoral College. And right now it's just looking increasingly less likely, directly as a consequence of like how horrible she's performing in the areas that she was supposed to be performing in. I don't think it's going to be able to make up with the mail-in voters.
No, election day voters, whatever. Like, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Like, just looking at Georgia, she did like relatively okay in the Atlanta area, but just like, you can't survive the rest of the entire state moving away from you by as much as it does. God, she's probably going to only win New Jersey by 7.
Yeah, I saw something earlier. Oh, this is it. This is the one. Kamala Harris with 95% of precincts reporting is polling at 67.8% of the vote in New York City. If that holds, that would be the worst performance for a Democratic presidential candidate in the 5 boroughs since 1988.
Remember when fucking like Kathy Hochul said, like, I'm the fucking boss, I'm gonna win all these seats.
Yeah, it's like they looked at 2022, they looked at the worst performing aspects of 2022, which was New York, and they literally were like, let's nationalize that strategy. Let's tap to the center. Let's do the crime panic shit that was a demonstrable failure in New York in 2022 in the midterms. That and let's just do that on a national campaign. This is why I always told my chat, Democrats do not fucking learn lessons. They never learned the lesson from 2016. They never learned that lesson. There was a brief progressive momentum in the Trump administration because, like, obviously they were falling apart so disastrously, so spectacularly that, like, there were a lot of victories, a lot of races that were secured by, like, the Justice Democrats or groups like that, but ultimately, this was very closely resembling a 2016 run in many respects, with not as an unpopular candidate with Kamala Harris. Like, at least she didn't have. You talked about Hillary Clinton's like electoral successes, but like at least she didn't have conspiracy theories and all of the other shit, all the other undesirable shit that was associated with the Clintons in general, or even NAFTA, right? Like, she didn't have any of that baggage. But even then, she still desperately tacked to Joe Biden over and over again.
It was like she was explicitly saying shit like, the vice president can't break from the president. That's not what we can do. Why not? Why can't you break from the fucking president? Nobody likes him. You're trying to win the election, aren't you? Maybe you're not. Maybe you don't give a fuck about that. Like, Jesus Christ. It's just like these imaginary rules they placed around themselves where it's like so impossible to ever imagine like fucking doing anything meaningful to break from Biden, where while like everything else can be compromised on, anti-interventionism can be compromised.
No. You can break from the president when you're Joe Biden and you're breaking in the right-wing direction. That's the only way that you can break. Chuck Todd blames Latinx for Democratic losses among Hispanics. Yeah, dude, that's right. There was not a single fucking campaign message that had Latinx on it. Shut the fuck up,
Joe Biden
dumbass.
hasn't said Latinx since 2020.
Yes, Joe Biden ended this fucking woke shit, like, literally. He's 800 years old. He's barely stopping himself from saying fucking slurs, okay? There was no identity politics anywhere in this fucking campaign.
Yeah,
even
she
though
never
the media
talked about how she would be the first woman president. They praised Kamala Harris for breaking from identity politics.
I praise Kamala Harris for not doing that. It was smart. It was a smart thing to do.
It was the consensus. This was the consensus. The consensus was that, like,
this is a right-wing slant. They're doing it already. They're like, oh, the Democrats were too woke. That's why they lost. They need to be more fascist.
Yeah, see, this is what I hate. And I wrote about this. I wrote 2 articles at the end of the election. I wrote an explanation for why Trump loses. I wrote an explanation for why Kamala loses, and I blamed it mostly on Biden. Every time there's a result, people always say shit like this. If Kamala won, they would have been saying shit like, oh, she won because she broke from wokeism and she was so fucking smart to do that. But now that she loses, like, fucking, like, it's because she was too woke. You can't win. You can't fucking win. We did what you guys wanted to do since 2020. This is where it gets us. You're not that smart.
Look, they're doing it. Open letter to Democrats. Spending 4 years defending trans issues was a huge loser. Oh my God. I'm going to lose my fucking mind. They're so dumb. Everyone is so fucking stupid.
They didn't defend it.
No, the Democratic Party is literally the same as the Republican Party on this issue, where you know how the Republicans say, like, oh, what's the solution to gun violence? More guns, more of the same problem. The Democrats look at the problem where they do not actually have a competitive race where they showcase any sort of polarization from the Republicans. They literally run towards the Republicans. They want to hug and kiss them. And then they turn around and go, you know what was the problem? We didn't go right enough.
Yeah, that's the only fucking conclusion they can come to. Like, this shit, like, saying, up to 2024, you had it so there was not a single Republican who ran on trans panic that did well. You had fucking Andy Beshear in Kentucky who ran on saying that these Republicans are bullying
the most popular
children.
governor in the country.
Yeah, Andy Beshear, who they passed on, like, whatever. I don't even know what point I'm making there. But Andy Beshear in Kentucky, like, he said they're bullying children. They're bullying children. That's what they're doing. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not playing your games.
Tim Walz, also very popular, also pro-trans. Yeah. It does not fucking matter. The trans panic shit does not track. It doesn't fucking matter. All you're doing is exposing yourself when you talk about shit like this. All you're doing is exposing yourself as someone who really cares about it, okay? The Democrats did not run a fucking pro-trans campaign. What the fuck are we talking about? They literally were beating the Republicans by 16 points.
They made tweets saying that Trump was more pro-trans than them.
Yeah. And they were still beating the Republicans by 16 points on that because the Republicans were fucking constantly clobbering on the trans issues when no one gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck. Stop fucking hyper focusing on shit that Republicans are putting in front of you, please. Like they are so motivated by
trans shit. Is the reason why you were competitive in this race. You lost because you wouldn't break away from your fucking comfort character.
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's not just Joe Biden. It's not just Joe Biden. It's like I think Kamala Harris is a fucking adult. I think she is a human being who is 60 fucking years old. Like she is. I cannot in good conscience say that it's just because of Joe Biden. I think Kamala Harris had the worst fucking political instincts.
She came into a bad situation. Sure, I was willing to say that it was an unprecedentedly bad situation. No nominee had ever dropped out and forced somebody to come in as late as they did. But you know what? Nobody forced her to run. You could have had an open convention where fucking any number of your fucking glup shittos could have gotten the nomination and would have probably done really well. There were polls that had Josh Shapiro up by 10 points in Pennsylvania. Governor Whitmer in Michigan was winning by 5-7 points in Michigan. All these are states that she's probably going to lose. She was the one who made the party consolidate around her. She's the one who prioritized her own fucking ambitions over, like, actually beating this shit. We have to compromise for them on the most bullshit things while they can fucking throw whatever our priorities are out the window.
Yeah. And by the way, our priorities are not just our priorities. Like, is not when I advocate for Medicare for all, I'm not just doing it because like I'm selfishly wanting healthcare for myself. Yeah. Like, I think it's also a very popular policy. That's why I'm advocating for it. And it plays well. It polls incredibly fucking well. It's just so goddamn frustrating that they refuse to do this shit. Anyway, here's what NBC anchor just noticed. A memo from the Harris campaign is almost verbatim what Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign had sent, urging panic against. We're focused on the blue wall, which is here. I'm going to read it now. In Pennsylvania, we overperformed turnout expectations of Philly and overperformed our early vote expectations of Bucks County. We don't have election day results from Philadelphia, but we do know that we overperformed turnout expectations there and have seen especially high turnout in places with large non-white and student populations. You did not deserve those votes. You got them regardless. You got them in spite of your campaign, for the record. Anyway, you got them because those people were anti-Trump and they wanted to punish Trump for abortion restrictions. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on from that. But regardless.
You want to know what? I'm going to go into some deep lore. You guys ever, like any of you people who, like me, live in a swing state, one of these 7 fucking states where they spend all their money, you guys probably saw some ads by a firm named Future Forward. This was the dominant ad, not just in the Democratic messaging world, but in the entire Democratic Party. What they said went as practically gospel for everything that they did. They had $600 million, largely from venture capitalist firms. And they were run by a firm named Blue Rose Politics, run by a man named David Shore. David Shore is somebody who, in early 2021, said he would rather live in a world where the global climate increased by 4 points Celsius than one where China was a global hegemon. He is a center-rightist, and his message to the entire party was that if they didn't do exactly what he said and brought back Clintonism, that they would lose Trump would win the election with 60 seats. Then 2022 happens. He's proven completely wrong. Democrats gain seats. They lose only 1 swing state and by a narrow margin. But instead of throwing this guy out for getting practically everything wrong his entire career, writing shit that is used as a justification for every single anti-trans bill that is passed in the United States, being ostensibly cited by the American Principles Project, which were the people that pushed the anti-trans panic for years, they put him in charge of the largest super PAC in the United States. He was the person who was running this campaign. This is his fault. He is who was too clever by half and threw us all in the fucking abyss because they cared more about being center-right than winning. They would rather have a right-wing Democratic Party than a Democratic Party in power.